What's up, guys? Hey, welcome back to another video. Now this is going to be a breakdown on just the overall consumes and world buffs and things that we're using as of phase 4. Now this is going to be relevant specifically to phase 4, but in phase 5 not that much actually changes. There's not too many new things coming out, and I found when I was trying to figure out stuff and looking up stuff on Wowhead, I was having a hard time figuring out what stacked, what didn't stack, which of these should I really be trying to get, which of these were relevant and out only in phase 4, or not in stuff that's phase 5 or phase 6. So I wanted to make this to kind of give you guys an overview and tell you what things do and don't stack. Hopefully you don't overwrite your own consumes like we did last week. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the consumables. Now, a big one here that I obviously don't have in my bags is Flask of Supreme Power. That's the number one. If you want to really bump your DPS, that's going to be the biggest way to do it. It lasts 2 hours and it persists through death. So that's a really, really big one. They are relatively expensive on our server because our server is pretty busy, but I'll leave that up to you guys. Obviously here we have mana potions and we have lips. I don't feel like I need to talk about mana potions or demonic runes. Everyone should be pretty familiar with that. But when it comes to lips, these are a big one that I've more recently started using as we start getting more and more geared as casters, especially in these later phases. And we have full world buffs and we have things like Flask. You're gonna be pulling aggro occasionally, especially in trash situations because of just the mechanics of getting a couple lucky crits in a row, and you're gonna be just super high chance you're gonna be ripping aggro. So definitely want to have lips on hand. You want to have a couple stacks of these, and you want to really make sure that you have it keybound to something that's quick and easy for you to react to. You need to know as soon as that thing targets you and starts running at you, you have to have something to click right away. Not gonna elaborate on these too much, but I have died by not having these keybound, and these, after I had these keybound, was a day and night difference. So I definitely recommend this. This is kind of a newer thing I've started doing the last couple weeks. So highly recommend it. As you guys start getting more gear, these become more and more valuable. Now onto the fire protection stuff. We have greater fire protection potions as well as Juju Embers. Right now the only two fights these are really relevant on is Veil and Firemaw. I pre-pot, usually I run with a full stack of GFPPs, and I pre-pot one and then cast one during the fight. This obviously is going to be using up your mana potion cooldown, but we can use things like Innervate and Demonic Ruin to bridge that gap if you need it. Most of the time I find with world buffs I actually don't really even need the mana cooldowns, like the potion cooldowns right now, but these are really big for those fights. 15 fire resistance for free on top of your gear, and then this big absorb shield allowing you to avoid all of the spell knockback from the AoE mechanics are really big. So while this doesn't look like it would increase your DPS, avoiding the spell knockback is absolutely massive. Now on to the actual consumes themselves. We have Mage Blood Potion, Spirit of Zanza, and Greater Arcane Elixirs. Now these are the big ones that I'm using all the time. I think the one that most people probably don't know about is the Mage Blood Potion, or that's like a lesser known one. I would argue this is more valuable on Horde. It requires Revered to get this recipe with the Zandalari tribe. So hopefully you have a buddy or you have an alt or something that has reputation with Zandalar, and you can go ahead and get the mats and get these over, to whoever that is and get these made up, because these are actually really helpful. 12 MP5, while it's not a ton, it is really helpful because we don't have things like Blessing of Wisdom on Horde side. So having ways to increase our MP5 is really significant. And once you have this, something like this, for example, and Spirit of Zanza giving us 50 Spirit, and then on top of that, something like the ZG buff, which the 15% stats, all of those things really start to add up. And it's very noticeable from a playstyle perspective. Once you start gaining all of that regen in all those different places, it's very noticeable. So definitely try and get these if you can, just for these longer fights. Things like Neff, Rag, these are actually really helpful. Spirit of Zanza, really quick caveat here is there's also the Cerebral Cortex Compound, I think is what it's called, which is the 25 int consumable from Blasted Lands that lasts for 1 hour, and you turn in like Basilisk Brains and Vulture Meat or something. Those for some reason don't stack. Those two are considered the same type of consumable. So you have to pick either Spirit of Zanza for 2 hours or the Cerebral Cortex consumable for 1 hour. Now, the Cerebral Cortex is 25 int, which will actually yield you more overall DPS. So it's definitely a more offensive choice because it has spell crit associated with the increased intellect. However, the Spirit of Zanza is way more stats overall and lasts twice as long. So you're gonna have to make that call yourself. Also, Spirit of Zanza is much easier to get. So for me personally, moving forward, I'm always gonna be grabbing Spirit of Zanza before every raid because it just costs 1 Biju and it lasts 2 hours. So this is a big one. This is also a really, really good way to buffer yourself for your world buffs, making you a little bit beefier and increasing your chance of surviving any kind of AoE raid damage, making sure that you're saving all of your world buffs and your consumes. Now, Greater Arcane Elixir, I don't think I need to really go into this. Everyone should know these. These are big increase in your damage. You should always have a stack or 2 of these on you for every single raid. Now, I'm engineering, so I have Goblin Sappers and we have some grenades. You can also grab some Holy Waters, for example, for fights like Nefarian and killing the skeletons. But I just wanted to mention these. If you are engineer, I generally try to bring some grenades and some sappers to every raid for those AoE situations. Now on to world buffs. I'll put these kind of in a priority. So lowest being, don't get these if you're tight on time, and prioritize just the handful here at the top. But the lowest priority buffs, Horde side, I'll mention War Chief's Blessing. It's not really a significant caster buff and it only lasts for 1 hour. If you're able to get it, that's great, but I don't ever make a point of trying to be on specifically to get it because I don't think it's worth it, you know, if it takes 5 or 10 minutes to get, losing all my other buffs or, you know, time on my other buffs, because it's not that big of a deal for us as casters. For melee, it's huge. Casters, not so much. The other one I would say is tribute buffs. Now, tribute buffs generally are the first in my rotation of world buffs to get, so I generally always do have them, but 3% crit is not very much from a DPS gain perspective compared to all of the other world buffs. So if you're trying to really output the most DPS and you're tight on time, I would say these are the lowest priority. These are 2-hour buffs, so depending on your raid, you might value these a little more. If you have time, they're definitely great to get, but it can be hard to get, you know, save an instance that you can get into or get summons there. The DMT buffs are a little bit iffy, at least on our server. It's kind of hard to coordinate those sometimes. So for that reason, I have this kind of lower on the totem pole. Now, the big 4 that we have is we have Elixir, ZG, Songflower, and Dark Moon Fair. Those are the big 4 that are going to give you the most bang for your buck and going to be a massive increase to your DPS. While Songflower is only 1 hour, which I really don't like, I wish it was a 2. I would rather it be short, less crit and twice as long, but it's only a 1 hour buff. But it does give you also increased stats. I think it's 15% or 10% increased stats. So that's also really big, and the 5% crit is massive as well. So when you get that, and you get Onyxia, and you get Tribute, that's 18% spell crit that we're gaining. So that's pretty big in itself. The ZG buff helping a lot, but giving us an increase to all of our stats and making our health pool and mana pool bigger, giving us a little bit of spell crit because of that, the increased intellect. And then the increased spirit is also really noticeable as far as our passive regen with the reflection talent, as well as how it scales with Innervate. So all of those are really, really big ones. Dark Moon Fair, 10% increased damage is massive. So if this is ever up, whatever week you're raiding, this is the week you want to really try and push parses. You'll see like this week, a ton of people are flasking, a ton of people are getting crazy numbers this week, and it's really fun to see everyone really trying to push the limits with the Dark Moon Fair buff being up. So that being said, that's kind of everything as far as going through the world buffs and kind of how I prioritize them. If you can get everything, you're going to really notice how strong you feel by comparison. But hopefully this helped you kind of pick out which of these are kind of the biggest priority and what you really should be trying to get every single week. With that being said, hopefully you guys found this helpful. Let me know if you have any questions of where to get these, how to get these, what order we get these in, all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to get this out there and let you guys know kind of every week what I'm doing to prep for raid. And hopefully you guys find this helpful as well. So with that being said, we are going to be streaming tonight at the time when I post this video. So if you want to come hang out, you have any questions, come and kick it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.